Guten Nagen. I don't know what that means. My dad was stationed in Germany when he was in the army. He didn't see any combat other than whatever combat he created. He wasn't. He was stationed in Germany in the late 50s. I don't remember, but he would come up with these German phrases that he learned while he was in Germany. Was Sie bitten? Guten Tagen. He'd say these random German things. Um, so, I don't know. Anyways, yesterday I did manage to call Stonehenge Apartments, and of course they were closed for the 15th and the 16th, and they're not open today, so I can't call them until Monday. I decided that that's where I was going to live, even if it costs like $850 to live there, and I had like $400 to live on, because I have to find a place, and it's like, you remember when I said that like I'd spend $850 and just rent the apartment above me just to have nobody living above me? It's the same basic concept. Is you know, there'll be nobody below me, nobody above me, and I like the way the area looks. And I'd have my own laundry facility. Like I said, they have laundry hookup. I can buy a washer and a dryer, and you know, I found out like it costs $4 or something to wash a load of clothes at laundromats. I lived at an apartment that had like a laundry facility down the road, and I was in such good shape that I would like had like a giant tote bag, like almost like a rucksack, because my niece was in the army, and throw it over my shoulder and walk like, oh, not quite a third of the mile down the road to the laundry facility, and I just walk it, and that was only um, 11 years ago. But yeah. Anyways, so I made that call, and I called the food people and tried to find out when they were going to show up today. My new food service, and they were like anytime between anytime. So basically, it's anytime between mid morning and mid afternoon, and they'll call me first or whatever. But I have a form over here that's really short that I have to fill out, and yeah. So I did a bad thing yesterday, which I smoked 2 cigarettes. My nurse was not good yesterday, and my niece stopped in, and I told her like, you know, she was saying something about needing dirt, and I'm like, well, I got a bag of dirt, like potting soil, left from the gardening days, and so I cleaned out the closet, and there was like um, felt in there, planting felt, 1.5 rolls of that. There was that green fence that you saw collapsed back there. There's a whole bunch of stuff. There was a thing for cutting like tree limbs. So I drug all that out of the closet. And then surprisingly, she stopped by later in the day. And I said, I don't want to, I just want to hand it through the window to you. And I was like, oh, the hell with it. It's too much bother handing things that are like taller than I am through a window. And it was too much bother for her. She just doesn't look healthy these days. But she said, if it makes you feel any better, I've been tested for COVID about 8 times. And I'm like, okay. And I asked her for a couple of cigarettes. And I smoked a couple of cigarettes. It's the first time I smoked since September. So, I got that addiction thing. But usually I manage to say no, but I just have to stay away from it like an alcoholic. Um, I got bad news yesterday because I sent my aide worker to the drugstore, and since I don't have a doctor anymore, I should call my doctor today because I don't know if I can get him to refill my prescription on my blood thinners. I had these blood thinners called Eliquis, and I don't know where they are. I have like a backup blood thinner, But after these blood thinners run out, my drugstore won't fill them anymore until I talk to my doctor. The problem is I don't think I have a doctor, and I I like ripped off the part. There's like a was like a skin tag type like piece of paper hanging off of the bottle, and I just ripped it off, you know, and assuming that I would have refills. I don't think I would have ripped it off if it didn't say I had refills. But there's some kind of screw up at the drugstore where I couldn't even get my blood pressure pills, and I sent them a bottle that it says that I get such. It has like two refills on it to the year good till the year 21. So I might not have a doctor anymore. So I might not be able to get my blood pressure pills, and I might not be able to get my blood thinner pills. So that wasn't good. I was not surprised when she didn't come back with the Xarelto, but when she didn't come back with the Metoprolol, I'm like, uh-oh. So I have to call the doctor's office and, at least find out what's what about that. And as usual, life proves to be annoying. Um, I saw the landlord yesterday, which is weird because uh, I made him text me first about the rent, and then I said I'll get back to you soon, and then I waited about 4 days, and I was like, it'd be in both of our best interests, considering that I got bad health problems and your wife has compromised health, for us to wait till the first. And he was like, no problem, you know, and whatever. So I don't have to even think about the rent until May 1st. He's gonna let me ride April free. He's trying to get back in my good graces. He's been trying to get back in my good graces ever since I blew up at him and threw him out of here. And he's within a week. He's like, I want to suddenly, after 6 months, fix the 8-foot hole in your wall. And I was like, man, just leave me alone. So I don't care about that. Leave me alone. So I don't have after that. I don't have extended conversations with that idiot. I was explaining to my nephew on the phone, like, he'd say the stupidest shit, and it's like stuff you couldn't even come up to. The only thing he can say is like that's about it is like it's like a conversation stopper. It's like when somebody says something like, "Oh, not that much cold air comes up from the basement into your bedroom," what are you gonna say to it except for like, you're not in my bedroom. I, that's just a dumb thing to say. He says stuff that it's just a stupid, illogical thing to say. Like when he was trying to weasel his way out of paying, like, it was a minuscule sum too for him, like $170. No, it was $110 to when his work crew wiped out the satellite dishes on top. He was like, "Well, I fixed the roof, and it cost me like $30,000 or something like that." And I'm like, "Well, that's what you get when when you buy a fucking building. You're responsible for that. There's nothing you can say to it." So he says this shit where there's nothing you can do as far as like following a pattern of logic or whatever. Maybe it's a good debate strategy. I don't know, but it just makes you want to choke him and be like, "Makes sense. Say something that makes sense." So I hate him already, so I don't want to talk to him. But he came in here a walking contradiction, and he went into the wheelchair guys. I just got done talking to him on the text, and I was like, I wouldn't even go in the hallway if I were you, because you got irresponsible people living here and alcoholics, and there was like kids in the hallway during the quarantine, and I'm like, I don't even go in. I said I don't even go in the hallway unless I'm wearing gloves. So naturally, and this I'm serious, like within an hour, I'm sitting out in the living room, and I see his truck pull out, and he comes in with a mask but no gloves. So he's touching doorknobs that people touch daily, repeatedly, and I'm like, dummy. Maybe he doesn't know that the virus can stay on a surface and live outside of a host for 72 hours. I mean, I don't know, but I just told him, I wear gloves going through that hallway. So he walks through the hallway, and he goes into he's carrying a couple of things. and no gloves on, but a mask on. And he goes into the wheelchair guy's um, place for a while. And then my aid worker shows up, and he was like, "Hey, so and so," or her name. I can't say her name. I shouldn't say her name on, but he knew her name, and she knew his name. I'm like, what? And then I'm like, she comes in, and he's like, I was like, was the landlord wearing a mask and no gloves? Did I get that right? And she goes, yeah. And he's she's like, I know that guy. I grew up uh, with that guy. And I'm like, did you go to the same school or something? She goes, yeah, briefly. And his parents did missionary work, and I guess she comes from a religious background and too, and I guess she did missionary work, or her parents did missionary work or something. They had some kind of connection. Maybe next time I'll ask more about the relationship, but I didn't ask much about that. But I wasted like $36 on cat food yesterday. I bought like a 30-pound bag of cat food for $20, and a can, 32 cans of cat food cost $16. And then, so I was like, my niece come over with a big bag of cat food she's going to give me, for just to give me something, because she's, she makes bank. And I'm being honest and not just taking it. I was like, oh, I just bought a 30-pound bag, and she's like, well, I'll take it back then. But then she like left a bunch of stuff here. She was just too tired to carry all that. She was dragging, man. She's too tired to carry all that stuff uh, out. Uh, but yeah. So, anyways, yesterday was weird, and I was nervous for whatever reason, and this is the second time now I was talking to the guy I call my real estate agent, which all he does is send me like, he goes through like apartments.com or whatever, and he searches out apartments that meet my specs, you know, and he's been very diligent about it. But he keeps saying, why don't you go to rehab over benzos? And it's like, I think it's like the third time he said, why don't you go to rehab over benzos? And it's like, well, I don't go into all my discomfort. How that's uncomfortable for me to go to hospitals or to go anywhere where I'm not in my own environment. You just can't walk around shirtless in places and whatnot. So I don't go into that, but I just explained to him, it's like, I'm not an addict. I said I went from Xanax to Valium, and then went from high doses of Valium to 30 milligrams of Valium, and then went from 30 milligrams of Valium successfully to 12.5 milligrams of Valium in like 2 months. But then I made that hideous mistake of like only staying at 12.5 for 9 days and dropping it to 10, and then like my body was like, fuck you, and just went off the rails. And then I was like miserable, and I screwed up the whole month of February, which February is when COVID came to America, but I didn't have any idea where, you know. I think the first case showed up here on January 21st, but it was like, no, nobody knew like the communicability level of it yet, and it hadn't reached Ohio. It didn't reach Ohio until March 13th. So, um, anyways, but he keeps, I don't know if it's like a lapse in memory or whatever, but we keep having the same conversation about rehab, and I just tell him like, it's not a matter of addiction. It's like that one day I didn't take any pills until in the afternoon. I just skipped my morning dose because I didn't think about it, you know. And I was like that's not the way you're supposed to take them anyway. You're not supposed to wait until you're like, it's not what you're supposed to do. But it's like it's not like, oh, this person has cigarettes like last night. It's like, man, I'm gonna go ahead and break down and smoke a couple of cigarettes. Um, it's not like that. It's like I can have, I got, I'm not gonna dig through them, but I got like massive amounts of volume just sitting around here. I wouldn't have massive amounts of cigarettes just sitting around here. And my volume kind of looks like this that they give me now. It's a yellow, like pill that's 5 milligrams. So I have these blue pills that are like 10 milligrams, and I have 171 of them when I counted. So everybody else is stocking up on toilet paper. I guess I'm stocking up on benzos. But yeah, I was disappointed I didn't get a hold of nobody. And I don't care if like I have to rent out a 2-bedroom apartment at this place and pay $850 a month for it. I won't do it. I need to get the fuck out of here. Um, you know, I don't. Nobody really understands that, but you know, I was like, this place is literally killing me because I'm texting. I hate texting, by the way. It auto corrects things all wrong, and it didn't autocorrect, and I'm like, this thing's egomaniacal. I can't, you know. Before you start looking at the log in somebody else's or the speck in someone else's eyes, look at the log on your own. It's like, you egomaniacal machine, you didn't correct autocorrect, but you corrected words that are actually spelled right just because they're weird words. So I don't like texting. And I have large hands, which is not good for texting anyway. So I'm texting this guy for like a really long time. I'm thinking, why aren't we just talking on the phone? You know. And I told him, like, next time just call me, and I'm like, I'm not sensitive, just say, hey, I gotta go. And I'll be like, cool with it. It's like, so if you want to talk, like, next time, just call me. And we'll pretend like we're in the 1980s where people talk to each other on the phone. But anyways, I'm having this long back and forth with him, and I'm explaining to him, like, you know, rehab's not going to help me with this. It's not. It might be a fun experience. I mean, I always I actually like going to psychiatric units and other places in a way because my life is so boring. I get to meet people, and I get to use my linguistic skills and my ability to abstract reason and just, you know, make people laugh. And you go through a lot of isolation, which everybody has a little taste of that now, I think, with the COVID thing. But I mean, it's fun. It's actually fun to go to a psychiatric unit. And when your life is boring, it's like an adventure or whatever. Even going to the hospital, which is horrible, of course, is at least interesting. You know, my life's pretty boring. Um, Unless you find excitement in pain, suffering, in a body that doesn't work. I mean, and falling down or worrying about falling down all the time. But yeah, I made up my mind. It's like I'm pretty much sold on those apartments. So even if they have like a 2-bedroom apartment that I gotta pay $850 for, I can hack it. You know, I I just if I get there and I'm like, whoa, I don't, you know, I need more. I don't need a lot of leftover money for fun though, because my hobbies are talking, writing, and playing a guitar. They're like terminal expenses, you know. I mean, the only thing I really spent money on ridiculously was an idea to make money, which was buying sports cards. And I don't do that anymore. There's no sports to buy cards for. I don't even know if this shit will get straightened around by the football season, but I'm hoping it will. And they'll play football um, come next fall, so I can sell a bunch of my football cards. And, you know, the Browns are already gearing up because they changed their whole coaching staff, and they're bringing in new players. And, you know, life goes on for multi-billion-dollar industries like NFL. I woke up with a weird stomach this morning, and very unhappy stomach. I don't know what that's about. And I don't feel good, and I can actually feel the difference just from smoking 2 cigarettes, because it's like, you know, It's like a baby smoking. I don't have no practice at it no more. So, but my voice hasn't been very good lately anyway. But I shouldn't have done that. But I don't know. I was very stressed out yesterday, and I'm not getting my exercise. I'm not waking up early enough. I woke up at 6:40, but it takes me a while to garbage trucks. It takes me a while to get going and to even vaguely feel like a human being in the morning. But yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time. You know, I like the whole idea. Like I said, nobody above me, nobody below me, no hallway, my own exit and entrance, my own laundry room, no more washing clothes out by hand. You know, I'll pay $850 a month, which is twice what I'm paying to live here, to live there. And if they don't have any one bedroom apartments available, I'll rent out a 2 bedroom apartment. The cat can have his own room, whatever, you know. So, uh, yeah, I could have like a music studio. um, yeah, I haven't played guitar uh, since screwing around that day with that riff, because I got to move the equipment around, and I'm not comfortable playing in here. I'm not comfortable playing out there. I'm not comfortable. It's a very strange thing to like never be comfortable, but like uh, since this disease really got a hold of me, and that's another thing I was explaining to the dude, is like CRPS is heavily affected by emotional distress, and I've had nothing but emotional distress for like 5 years. So I'm like, this place is literally killing me, you know, and that sounds like crazy talk to people. That don't understand that it's a disease that's hooked into your autonomic functions. Your autonomic functions are hooked into your brain and into the centers, like which organize and control your feelings, your emotions. So you can actually get sick from emotional distress, which is something my family never understood. Either that or they hate me. So, you know, the last 5 years has just been utterly disastrous. Uh, but, you know, that sounds like crazy talk, which I explain on One Pork Frog 1 that it's like you're like an alien creature to other people, because the way that we interpret the world is through our nervous systems, and everybody has vaguely the same nervous system. And my nervous system is so weird from being damaged that it's basically like I'm living in a different world than you. Like, I'm assuming like you won't wince if the wind hits you, but like if I'm not wearing a shirt and it's windy out and the wind hits my stomach like right here, it's actually like, fuck. You know, it's just, I'm assuming you wear shirts all the time. That reminded me for some reason of like, this is in the 1940s during World War II, but my Uncle Joe was in World War II, and he went to these islands in the South Pacific because he was in the Pacific Theater, you know, Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, New Zealand, you know, like where the war was fought. He was like on this one island, there was nothing but titties. He said because none of the women wore shirts, and I just like, what would that be like in the 40s, where like they didn't have? I don't even think they had. They, uh, yeah, I mean, Playboy was invented in the 50s by Hugh Hefner. I mean, just to have walk around, there's just like naked, topless women like walking around everywhere. I don't remember what he said about it, but I do remember that, thinking about like from a perspective of somebody that, you know, was born in 1922 to just like be 20 years old and there's just like titties everywhere. To like all they just walk around with boners like all over the place. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I do remember him saying that they treated them like kings on those islands and stuff, and he said it was great. I do remember that part, but I don't remember like specifically what he said. But he was a really blunt guy. He was funny, a really funny guy. He was the guy I was talking about. Who was we were fishing with him on a boat, and he just broke out in song. You know, he loved to fish, and I think he was already in his 70s at that point, so he was definitely at the. I think he was at the don't give a fuck age, like way World War II. Make your. Maybe he was in a don't give a fuck age at the age of 40. I mean, I don't know, but that happens to you when you get older. But he just like broke out in song and started singing while we were fishing, the three of us on his boat. And I looked across at his son, and his son was smiling and just shrugged, and like he does that from time to time. But yeah, I thought that was awesome. Um, I don't. I guess I should get ready for. I don't. I have no idea when these global foods people are going to show up. They're supposed to ring my phone first. That's what they said last time. But I suppose I shouldn't talk too long. Even though, like I said, that's one of the few things that I enjoy. Is the things that I enjoy from growing up poor. Like they don't cost a lot of money. You know, it's like once you buy the amplifier, once you buy the guitar uh, workstation, once you buy the guitar, it's like these are terminal expenses. It's like unless you break them, unless something goes wrong with them, you don't have to buy it. That's the same guitar that I've had now since I moved in here. I had my Fender Strat for so long that I just sold it. I wish I didn't sell it, but I sold it because the frets were worn down on it. But I had that for like 20 years minimum. I mean, yeah, I do miss that damn guitar. That was a mistake selling it. And I got creative with it. It was sold. I got creative with it, and the jack on it where you plug it in, the screws come loose, so the jack wouldn't stay in there. So I had to like take a bunch of. I read about it, and I just took a bunch of toothpicks and wood glue, and like stuffed them in this hole where this because the jack plate was coming loose, and like fixed it. You know, I'm not a handyman. I'm like the opposite. I don't break things, so I guess I'm not the opposite of a handyman, but I can't really fix shit. But I fixed that guitar. And it's like I had the guitar for at least 20 years. So the point being is like I can live on very little money, especially if I'm getting these free food packages. I might even be able to get, you know, food stamps more than $16 a month because my rent will be more expensive. I don't know, but I do want. I'm like I'll live there even if the only thing they got available is a 2 bedroom. I'm taking it, you know. And as far as like stuff for the landlord, I might actually do that because I got him to wait till March 1st on the rent. I never said I was going to pay the rent. I just asked him to wait until if he could wait until March 1st after the quarantine. And you know, the implication is that I never said I am going to pay you. You know, so I'm not lying to him. I'm just stringing him along, which is of course duplicitous and mildly disingenuous, but not outright chicanery, or that other word that I can't think of. I get angry when that happens. Um, Damn it, can't think of that other word. They have a stupid fancy word for just lying. But part of that reason I can't think of it is I'm trying not to rub my nose because it's bothering me. But I was making my niece laugh yesterday by telling her the blood drenched story that I told on here about almost bleeding to death. And she has a morbid sense of humor from being in the army. And she never saw any real combat. She shot at people, but she was in the army, and she did actually. She is her pain tolerance is way better than mine. It's like it makes me very jealous. But she had a cut like in her arm, and she didn't want to. I have to do that. She didn't want to deal with you know, reporting it or whatever. So she took a staple gun and stapled a cut with a staple gun. You know, that sounds crazy, but she just, she's the person that got her teeth drilled without Novocaine just because she wanted to go dancing later on in the evening and didn't want to have a, guess wanted to feel the guy kiss her, just didn't want to be drooling. She didn't want to be talking weird. So she's like, go ahead and drill my teeth without Novocaine. So it's like, I'm the guy that needs that kind of pain tolerance, but I don't have it. I'm a big sissy. So, yeah. So I did actually try yesterday and make the phone calls, and it's just that the office is closed, and they're not open on Fridays, so I can't call them again until Monday. But I would love to get that going. I would love it if my nose would stop itching, or if I could permit myself to. Uh, I don't have any tissues around here or anything like that. But hey, that's pretty much the gist of it. I don't know what I'm gonna do today except for like wait on these food people. But I gotta start it. Get my exercise in. Ever since I fell that one time, I feel like there's a gnat in my nose flying around right now. But ever since I fell that one time and I tweaked my knee and busted up my finger and um, wrenched my wrist and hurt myself. And I'm like, I didn't even hit the ground. How could I hurt myself that bad? I'm a delicate little flower. I can't help it. Like, how could I hurt myself that bad if I actually didn't fall? It's like I've fallen so many damn times I can't even count them all, and I got hurt worse not falling. Leave it to me. Uh, just catching myself, I actually got hurt worse than when I've fallen. It's like, seriously, that's the worst I got hurt was not falling as opposed to falling. I didn't think of that before. That's ridiculous. Oh, except for the time that I fell and I hit my arm on the fan and put my arm all the way behind my head like this with my full body weight and tore my rotator cuff. That was definitely worse than, yeah, that was that thing where like I couldn't lift my arm up any higher than this without pain for, God, 8 months, 10 months. It takes a long time for rotator cuff to heal, but now I can do this. YMCA. Or I could even do the Ohio thing. I don't know how. I don't know how to do that. I don't. They do that at sporting events and shit. Um, they make the O and then the H, and I don't know how the I goes. Then they go back to the O. Um, but anyways, I'm gonna go, and I gotta have that paper ready for those people. I have no idea when they're gonna get here. I guess my day will consist of me doing a lot of sitting around, waiting on people that I don't know when are gonna show up, and yeah, I did a whole bunch of writing and thinking yesterday on the computer too, which I got into like I watched a debate between Matt Dillahunty, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and Jordan Peterson, which was like 140 minutes or something like that, and it was right in my wheelhouse. And then I wrote a very long, careful post about it to the guy who turned me on to um, the video. Because I was like, why do people hate this Jordan Peterson guy? Because they were talking to Noam Chomsky, who's a known intellectual, probably one of the most famous intellectuals of the 20th century. He's like in his 90s. And they were talking, it was on a video of him talking in his 90s. And, he was very dismissive of Jordan Peterson. And he's like, I don't think about him at all, and kind of laughed. And he said, if you want to know my opinion on him, you just read this article. And then I read the article, and it was like a hatchet job article. And I'm like, seems to be a lot of hate for Mr. Peterson out there. And I'm like, I'm not exactly sure why. And then this guy was like, well, I said, I'm not going to argue with you, but, I'd like to hear your opinion of it, talking to this guy on the internet. And he's like, well, he comes off the worst in this interview. Then I watched the interview, and then I spent like a long time in contemplative thought, writing this thing, like 2 hours. Um, because certain abstract subjects you have to write it in a way that people can understand it. And so I was writing about the things that I've debated about for years and years and years, which are probably not that interesting to you, but there's a big debate about the definition of atheism, and I cannot get people to understand that disbelief is a belief. If you form an opinion to where you don't believe something about it, it's a belief, and this is a big problem for atheists for some fucking stupid reason that I could never figure out. But the way there's different ways that arguments that are unassailable that I've come up with and with it, but I used the only one I could remember off the top of my head because I stopped doing that stuff. Is there's no difference between saying I disbelieve that Bigfoot exists and I believe that Bigfoot doesn't exist. There's no difference. So therefore, disbelief is a belief. You do not have a blank spot in your head if you don't believe in God. You heard about God, you believe it's a bunch of bullshit. You have a belief. Deal with it. It's the way it fucking works. The only true atheism, the true atheist, and the A meaning without, theism meaning belief in God, uh, they said it means literally not belief. And I was like, just get the fuck out of here. It's like only babies and people that haven't heard about God would fit that definition of belief. Because uh, they, you hear about something, you weigh it in your mind, and then you believe it's bullshit. That's disbelief. Disbelief is a belief. Shut the fuck up. But you would not believe the incredibly long arguments I've had with atheists about this point. And then it was funny because I had like an arch enemy in the group of debating people. I can't remember the guy's name, but he fell apart. Like his girlfriend died, and like he literally fell apart and had a breakdown, like publicly on the debate. We used this YouTube video as a debate forum with this same group of people. And but yeah, he supported my point of view. He hated me worse than anybody, and was really a bright guy. But his like girlfriend got sick and died of something. No, it was a fiance. Actually, he was planning on marrying her, so it like ruined his life that she got sick and died, and he like fell apart publicly, and then was never heard from again. And he was like a fixture on this debate forum that we created underneath a video that had millions of views called "Atheist Bitch Slap" was the actual name of the video. But I spent like years ruling. That was my fiefdom. I said I would tell newcomers like you're on my lily pad now, since my name was Pork Frog, and it's like, are you sure you want to go down this road? And then would debate people, and then other people would watch in horror. And I've had people like, yeah, don't mess with that guy. Because I spent a lot of time exploring the topic of belief, and ever since I had that experience when I was 20 years old, it's always fascinated me. Um, like what was that? How did that? Why did that happen to me? How uh, that whole experience, like that changed my life, was a life-changing experience. It's like ever since then I've been kind of like I just to say I read a lot of books and wrote a lot about the subjects of belief and disbelief, theism and atheism, uh, God, the nature of how we connect to reality, and what yada 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 philosophical type crap. And so that was like how I chose to spend my time until I realized that I'm just being redundant and repeating the same things, which I'm sure I do on here quite frequently, and I quit doing that. But what that has to do with anything is just that's how I spent my days revisiting that yesterday and finding the best and easiest way to make an argument and write a thing about this big on YouTube, and I've got no response to it because there is no response to it. You can't fight it. It's unassailable logic, and it's honed and crafted and forged in the minds of Moria, like Mithril. there's there's some nerdy references for you to Lord of the Rings. You Nothing can penetrate Mithril, and nothing can penetrate that argument that I created. So there's probably won't be any response to it unless they're foolish. There's plenty of foolish people on YouTube, so I happen to be one of them when it comes to other things, but not that. Um, so, anyways, that was that part of it was self-indulgent and boring. I have to figure out something about my medical situation because obviously I have to have a doctor. I have to have like blood thinner. If I've had my heart shocked 5 or 6 times, still don't know how many. And so if I got like 8 blood thinner pills left, you know, so that's not going to work. So I'm going to call the doctor's office today at some point and just, oh, they're only open till 12, so it'll have to be before 12 to find out what's up. And I'll tell them, like, you know, do I technically still have a doctor? Because they said, like, as of April 30th, and I can maybe get him the right scripts for, like, the blood thinner and tell him, like, look, because even if it was prescribed by a cardiologist, and they wanted me to follow up and go see a cardiologist, which I never did. They're like, I can look it up maybe on the computer and find out who prescribes in other words, I've created a problem for myself, and COVID has created a problem for me because we get COVID, and suddenly my doctors are heading for the hills, and my medical practice is breaking up. Just when I needed you most. There's some song from the 70s that has that line in it. You left me just when I needed you the most, and it's like a reverse ballad, like slow, sad song. I can't think of the name of it, but it's like COVID came, and then suddenly all my doctors split. You know, it's like they're reallocating and changing. And I'm like, is that a coincidence? I don't really know. I don't know what's going on because I got this weird like letter with legalese just saying that my medical group has been reallocated, and that I should call this number if I still want to be with the Altman Medical Group or whatever. And it's like I can't go see a doctor now anyway because it's too high risk. I shouldn't have even let my niece in the apartment yesterday, but she said she had to take somebody to the dentist, and they checked them both for COVID before they went to the dentist. So she said, if it makes you feel any better, I've been tested like 8 times in the last 2 months for it, But she could have come. It doesn't work like that anyway. But I was like, fuck it. I was in a don't care type of mood yesterday because she could have come in contact with somebody after she got tested, have it on her, leave it in my house, I touch it, It's a very weird thing. It's like when I was unpacking my groceries, I put rubber gloves on just because other people touched the bags, and then like I dump the bags out on the floor in front of the refrigerator, and then take off the rubber gloves and pick up the food items and put them in the refrigerator. Just because somebody else touched those bags and I don't know where they've been. So it's very much like you're in a radioactive or some kind of poison environment. It's horrible. I'm just in the highest cardiovascular disease is the highest risk group for death. It's like at 15% or something like that in the statistics that I looked at. So I have to be careful at the same time, I still have to go to the doctor. I did a double mirror thing, and I looked at my tooth, and I got a freaking cavity forming that's a little bit too close to the gum line for comfort on one of my few remaining teeth. It's like life is really hard for me under normal circumstances, but in this COVID universe now, it's like it doesn't seem like a doable thing. And maybe have a different attitude when I move into that Stonehenge apartment building complex, and I can feel a little safer. That I was really freaked out that one day when I heard a bunch of kids in the hallway during the quarantine. I'm like, kids, who is more heedless about germs, not covering their mouth when they sneeze and cough, touching everything with their snotty hands than kids, little kids? And there's a bunch of kids running through the hallway, contaminating the area. And then, I watched the lady that lives upstairs, and she goes and walks to the store. I guess her and Roy got some kind of relationship going where she goes to the store for him and gets him things. But she never wears any gloves. You know, she never wears any gloves as far as like touching the doorknob to the outside or the mailbox or, the walls or whatever in the hallway. So I don't want to be paranoid, but I'm getting to the point where, like, I don't care, man. I'm tired of living like this. It's like if I catch it, and I die, whatever. It's not depression. It's just like this isn't a way. This isn't a livable. I got like I said, I got to deal with going to the dentist, and I got to find a doctor and go to a doctor, and I'm running out of blood thinner anyway, and so that means that if I have another case of arrhythmia, um, they're going to keep me because I'm not going to be on a blood thinner. I think it unlikely that they'll break protocol, and you know, medicine like war is a racket. They make more money by keeping you in the hospital anyway. And if you die, it's not their fault, you know, because this COVID thing is killing people in Ohio. So they can just say, well, it's COVID. Probably making it easy for like medical malpractice suits and stuff. So I just thought I had other refills or whatever on that Xarelto, so I sent the aid worker with it to the drugstore and asked them what's up, and they were just like, call your doctor. And I'm thinking, I don't have a doctor to call, you know. Or they'll be like, or I'll call them, and because I haven't seen a cardiologist since my episode, and I've been taking the stuff since September. Since my episode in September, my last smoke was actually not in September. My last cigarette was actually October 30th because it was the day I had all my teeth pulled. So that was wrong. I had my heart episode in September, but I haven't seen anybody in the cardio field since September. So it's unlikely that they do not like to prescribe unless they've seen you within a certain amount of time frame. So, but then this is like a COVID world now where like they might be willing to use new rules, and I might be able to get my medication if I can find a number to call and be like, yeah, you prescribe me this blood thinner, because I don't know, it's just going to be complicated and annoying, and like my life is complicated and annoying already, and yeah, I have to go and try to figure this out, and what to do about it, because no blood thinner equals hospital stay. Most likely hospital stay means annoyance under normal circumstances, and possible unnecessary tests, getting shocked like last time, or no, getting like they put me through that procedure where they like doped me up and gave me a bunch of chemicals, and then they put me through another procedure which was the face hugger procedure, and I'm going through all this shit. So that's under normal circumstances. But now, I'm going into a hospital, which is not a place you want to go right now, and not just getting shocked in the emergency room. And so I just have to be very careful with my heart, which I wasn't last night because I smoked 2 cigarettes. and whacked off, which seemed necessary at the time because I needed to get rid of some stress. Um, but anyways, Captain TMI reporting for duty. I am dismissed now. I am my own superior officer. So I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.